Today I'm going to be ranking every category for Amazon FBA from best to worst. Everyone's always asking me what are the best categories to sell and what are the worst categories to sell, so I thought I'd make this video and just clear it up and explain my thoughts about each of these categories. This is all based off my own experience as an Amazon FBA seller who's been doing it several years now and is making 30 grand profit every single month. And if you do want to learn from my own expertise, I'm running an offer right now this month that you can join my mentorship program for just £290 per month. There'll be a link down below in the video description if you are interested. So let's get into the video. So here is my list of all the categories I'm going to be rating today. Let's start off with Amazon device accessories. So this is going all the way to the D tier. Now the reason is you can't sell this sort of stuff. This is talking about kind of Kindle chargers and Alexa accessories, basically Amazon branded products that they sell themselves. You just can't really shift this stuff on Amazon. So for that reason, it's going straight to the D tier. Then we've got consumer electronics. So this is probably one of my biggest categories that I sell myself, but I'm actually not going to put this at the top. I'm going to say A tier for this because there's a lot of profit to be made, but there are definitely some caveats, especially for smaller sellers in this category. The problem with consumer electronics is the losses on returns can be quite significant. Depending on the products you sell, if you don't pick the right brands to sell, the right products to sell, you can have a lot of issues with returns, and with how expensive some electronic products can be, that can really eat into your margins if you're not dealing with those effectively. And if you're a small seller as well, losing say £500 on a laptop that comes back smashed up, that could just be completely business ending for you. So it's something that you might want to consider before you start delving too deep into this specific category. Then we've got entertainment collectibles. So I guess this would be stuff like Funko Pops and maybe Pokemon cards, stuff like that. I'd say that's going all the way to S tier because you're not going to get those problems with like return rates a lot of the time. That said though, I have seen cases of people being a bit cheeky with like Pokemon card packs, opening them and then just sending back the cards if they're not happy with the pics. Luckily you can get reimbursed for that from Amazon, but other than that kind of case, I'd say this is a pretty good category to be selling. Lots of opportunity for deals. Next up, we've got fine art. So to be honest, I've never even heard of this category because it's not something I've looked into. But I can't imagine it would be very good for kind of online arbitrage, like paintings or whatever. I wasn't even sure you could buy this stuff on Amazon. So I'm putting that straight in the D tier. Then we've got grocery and gourmet food. So I'm putting this all the way into the A tier. I think this is a really good category to sell. You get really low return rates, really high volumes. I would say the only problems I know of with this sort of category is because of how cheap a lot of the items are in this category, you have to sell quite significant volumes to make actually decent sized amounts of profit. As well as that, it sometimes can be quite hard to get approved for certain brands in this category just because it's stuff people are eating and they don't want kind of super random people selling it. You've probably got to have a little bit of seller history before you kind of go deep on some of these brands. So just for that kind of extra level of difficulty selling the products and the kind of high volumes needed, I'd say it's not quite S tier. Next up, we've got health and personal care. So this one's going straight into the B tier. Now, I think there's a lot of potential with this category. You can make a lot of money from it, and I know many people that do. But the main problem with this category is just competition. You get so many online arbitrage sellers selling this exact category. And I just find because of that reason, you tend to get products kind of tanking a little bit in price, you know, just too much competition basically, fighting over the buy box. And because of that competition, just leads to lower prices for items. Good for the consumer, not so good for people like me trying to make a little bit of profit. So I say that there's definitely a lot of volume in this category, a lot of potential. It's got to be B tier for that reason. Then we've got home and garden. So I'm saying this one's also going to be in the B tier because it's quite seasonal. I've made a lot of money in this category. It's something I like quite a lot. And if you buy certain products, it can be really good. But it's just a seasonality side of things. You know, 6 months of the year in England, it's usually raining and cold and people don't really want to go in the garden. So there's a lot of products that really slow down for the winter months. And so for that reason, being that it's kind of like half the year it sells well, half the year it doesn't, you've got to be careful with kind of what time of year you're buying these sort of products. So for that reason, it's going in the B tier. Then we've got industrial and scientific. So I'm going to put this in the A tier because I quite like it because it's just kind of a weird category. You get a lot of weird sort of products. I might be being a little bit generous with that ranking because there's definitely a lot of stuff in this category that doesn't really sell very well because it's just not a very big category. But I find some of the best sellers in this just interest me personally, so I quite like sourcing them. And because they're often quite strange brands and strange products, you do tend to get kind of less competition because it's just stuff that people don't really think of that much. Then we've got major appliances. So this is going in the C tier. So this is stuff like washing machines, dishwashers, oven hobs, stuff like that. Like big appliances. Now, there's definitely money to be made in this category, and it's not going in the D tier because it's not unsellable. You know, definitely money to be made, and you do get very little competition from other sellers, especially smaller sellers, because shipping stuff like washing machines is no easy feat because of how much they weigh and how big they are. Then that also is kind of why it's in the C tier. It's a very difficult category to work with. I've sold oven hobs before myself, but I've never sold anything as big as a washing machine. So I say it has potential, but there are definitely caveats to selling this product. Then we've got music and DVD. So this is going straight in the A tier for me. That's because I just find there's not a lot of competition on these sort of products, at least in most cases. And surprisingly, people do still buy DVDs. People do still buy CDs. Vinyl is actually a really good seller at the moment on Amazon. There's a lot of vinyl records for like new releases. There was actually something that I bought quite recently, a Chapel Roan. I think that's the person that made the album. It's like a really big album in the charts, and the vinyl was selling upwards of 1,000 units per month on Amazon. And I sold a whole load of these. So yeah, definitely a lot of money to be made in that category if you know kind of what's trending and what to buy. Another little bonus tip as well, for a lot of TV shows that have a huge amount of seasons, stuff like Friends where they have like 20 different seasons, you get box sets, and the box sets are like 120 quid a lot of the time. Sometimes you can find these reduced for like 50, 60 quid. And that's obviously a very decent margin to be making on just a little DVD. Then we've got musical instruments. So these are going in the C tier just because I've had some bad experience with these myself, because musical instruments tend to be quite fragile a lot of the time. Amazon workers, however, have very little regard for the fragility of the items you're selling a lot of the time. They will just kind of chuck them about the warehouse. And that means I have had stuff that's come back broken, and I have been reimbursed, but it's just a little bit of a pain kind of asking them to give you a refund for that sort of stuff. So that's going in the C tier. It's all right. It's not the worst category, but it's definitely not the best. Then we've got Amazon Kindle. Straight in the D tier. You can't sell these, they're restricted products. You just can't sell any of these kind of brands that Amazon owns on Amazon. Office products are going straight to the B tier. I find you do definitely get dips in demand around like kind of December, January time for whatever reason. But then you have huge booms around like the end of September or the start of September even, when it's kind of back to school season. A lot of these products as well have really high volumes because they're kind of consumable, stuff like pens that kind of, you know, they run out of ink. People always got to buy more pens. They just have really high consistent volumes. So definitely a lot of money to be made in that. Outdoors is going straight in the C section because, yeah, same sort of reason as home and garden. It's very, very seasonal, but even more seasonal than that category. People only really like going outside for like 3 to 6 months a year in this country because of how cold it kind of gets. So I find that though there's money to be made, there are definitely limitations to it. Personal computers, for me, that's going all the way to the S tier. The reason why is I just love tech. I love high ticket goods. It means that per unit, I'm making a lot of profit per item. It's definitely higher risk for the reasons I kind of talked about earlier when I added consumer electronics to this chart. But personally, I've sold loads of laptops, loads of computers, loads of stuff like that, and had really good success with it. So for me, that's going straight to S tier. Then we've got pet supplies. Again, this is going straight to the S tier. Pet supplies sell all year round in really high volumes. I've actually just got a couple kittens myself who are absolutely awesome. But I spend so much money on cat food. They're just always eating. It's obviously bad for me, but if I'm, you know, people buying it on Amazon, they're buying so many units monthly. The demand never really goes down. People are always going to want kind of supplies for their pet. And I find as well, if you work in the wholesale angle of this sort of business, there are a lot of wholesale deals out there for pet food and similar kind of products. So yeah, really, really good category. Now software, just going straight in the D tier. I've not really got any experience with this, but as far as I know, you can't really sell software on Amazon because it's like a digital product and it's something that just Amazon deal with themselves. Again, I don't really know the ins and outs because I've not looked into it too deeply, but I know there's just no real arbitrage opportunities there. You can't really get kind of discounts from big name retailers on this sort of stuff. So just going in the D tier. Then we got sports. So I'll probably put this in the B tier because it's a bit seasonal. You know, winter months, it does definitely slow down, but only really for some sports. Some sports people just like playing year round. And I know there's definitely some high volume products I've sold before. Footballs, for example, selling crazy amounts on Amazon. It's definitely a good product type to kind of be looking at. Sports collectibles, I think, go one peg higher though, definitely in the A category for me. Just because there's something that sells all year round. You know, people buy the stuff even if they don't necessarily play the sports themselves. So I would say this is a pretty good category to be looking at. And I find as well, you can often find pretty big discounts on this sort of stuff depending on the time of year. Tools and home improvement for me go straight to the S tier. It's something that I sell a lot of. I love DIY products and that sort of stuff. Probably a little bit of seasonality with it. I find like spring sort of time, it definitely picks up a lot, but all year round, honestly, it sells. Toys and games, definitely going to S tier. This is kind of an arbitrage arbitrage seller's favorite. Maybe should go a peg down just because of the kind of the competition you do get on these listings, but I think around Christmas time really makes it kind of exceptional. It's November right now, so we're coming up on Christmas, and yeah, already the toys that I've got in stock are absolutely flying out, and I'm just trying to get in as many more products like that as I can before the end of the month and stuff really starts to slow down in terms of like logistics and getting stuff to Amazon's fulfillment centers. But yeah, I really like this category. Video, DVD, and Blu-ray, this is kind of sort of similar to music and DVD, basically the same sort of category, but yeah, DVDs, Blu-rays, they sell really well for all the same reasons I've already mentioned. Automotive and power sports, I find this to be really good. This goes straight in the S tier, and that's because people drive cars all year round. They're always going to need new engine oil, new air filters, new kind of bits and bobs just like that. So for me, this goes really well. There's a lot of high volume listings like this on Amazon, so a really good category to be looking at. Now, video games for me are a bit of a weird one. I think these have got to go in the B category. And the reason being is that yes, there's huge volumes on these products. There's a lot of demand for them. There's a lot of listings, and there's a lot of deals for video game products. But I do just find often when you see the prices of video games going down, where you think it might be a really good deal on that kind of game right now, the price often doesn't go back up. I find that video games, a bit like used cars, just depreciate like crazy. You know, a year or two after they've been released, they've gone from a £50 game to a, you know, £10, £15 game, because everyone that really wants it has kind of already bought it. And I find for that reason, I have just been caught out a few times now with deals on video games where I've thought the price was going to recover and it's just not. So yeah, B tier for me. Watches for me, I've probably got to be A tier. The reason being is because it's quite a slept on category. There's not a lot of sellers that really sell watches, and it's something that I've sold quite a bit of. Stuff like Casio watches and things like that could go really well on Amazon, and also with pretty decent volumes, especially on kind of the lower price sort of watches. Some of the more expensive ones, I mean, I've sold watches up to pretty much like £1,000 on Amazon, and they sell, but they just sell really slowly, that it's quite risky buying like more than one. And obviously, if you get competition from other people, that can be a bit of a kind of business ender, or at least for that ASIN, it can be a bit of a problem. So that's why it's not S tier. But I'd say there's definitely a lot of potential in this one. Baby products, just gotta be S tier. Definitely put it in there because, yeah, people are always having babies. People have always got to buy new baby products for their babies. Stuff like nappies, baby powder, all this sort of stuff. It just sells really high volumes. People always need more. You know, as soon as the baby grows out of it, more babies are being born. It's just a year-round thing. So yeah, really good category, and lots of deals to be found in that category as well. Here comes the big category, beauty. So this has got to be probably B tier. Same sort of reason as health and personal care, really. The competition in this category is just absolutely crazy. There are a huge amount of deals in beauty. It's one of the biggest categories on Amazon. There are a huge amount of products that do high volume. In some ways, it should almost be S tier, but unfortunately, it's just due to the amount of other people that source this category on Amazon and how common it is amongst online arbitrage sellers that you just get so much competition on these sort of listings that the prices just go down and down and down as more people pile on. So it's something I've never been too heavy on, at least kind of in the recent couple of years that I've been doing Amazon. And for that reason, you know, it's got to be B tier. And comparing beauty products to what I usually sell as well, like a lot of tech products, you could have a cream, right, where you're selling it, and if it drops 50p, that is your whole margin gone because it's such a cheap product. Meanwhile, the stuff that I usually sell, the kind of higher priced items, if it drops a tenner, I'm just making a tenner less out of maybe £200 I'm making per unit. Then we've got books, so this has probably got to be A tier for me. I find books to be really good. It's a category a lot of people don't really go for. It's mainly better for VAT-reg sellers like myself, so kind of bigger sellers, because it's 0% VAT rated, so you get a bit of a boost when it comes to kind of the actual profit calculations versus any smaller sellers. Really, the only downside to books is it is actually quite hard to find good book deals. You know, there's just not a lot of sites to have kind of the best deals for them. And you've also got to be really careful when you're sourcing that they're not pre-owned books, because if you start selling used books as new, obviously people are going to complain and you get stuck with a load of used books that you have no use for at all. So definitely a really good category, but only if you know how to play it. Camera and photo, I find this to be probably A tier because you get a lot of high priced items, a lot of kind of good sellers. The only downside to it is that though the profit is really good when you find a deal, actually finding deals from legitimate sites can be quite rare. There's a lot of scam sites out there for this sort of stuff. Probably just because of the kind of price of the item. You know, if you can kind of scam someone for £2,000 for a camera, it's a lot better than kind of a £20 beauty item. As well as that, it's kind of the same issue as with consumer electronics. The returns on these can be absolutely brutal. I've had all sorts of stuff come back completely destroyed pretty much. I've had, you know, multi-thousand-pound cameras come back a year and a half after use because they've broken, and Amazon has basically pointed the warranty towards me. And then I'm stuck having to kind of talk to some camera company for ages, getting them to fix it, and probably having to pay loads of money. It can be a real headache, honestly. I would say if you've got big balls and a big bank account to do this, it's a good category. Other than that, if you lack either of those things, I'd probably stay clear. Phones and accessories, I've probably got to put these in C tier, actually. So I do like tech, but I find the returns with phones, they're often just unsellable. Because of how people use them, they often come back really broken, or they come back and they're locked to the person that's bought it, and I have no way to contact that customer and get them to unlock the phone. A lot of phone accessories as well are private label, so you can't sell them at all, and there's a lot of brands like Belkin and Anker, where if you try and sell them, there's a good chance you're gonna have account issues because you're just not supposed to sell those brands. So for me, I think phones and accessories can work, but it's a very risky category to enter. And then finally, collectible coins. Honestly, I didn't know this was something that you could sell on Amazon. I'd probably put it in C tier because it definitely has some potential. If you really know your stuff, I can imagine this could be quite a good category. But for me personally, I don't really know much about coins, and I dread to think of what the returns might be like. You know, someone buying a £2 coin that's like a fancier face on it or something and sending back a regular one. I don't know, Amazon customers can be pretty evil at times, so I'd probably put this one in C tier. So there you have it, that is my complete tier list for Amazon FBA categories. So now you know exactly what is worth selling and what categories are just better off avoided. But this is only one piece of the Amazon FBA puzzle. There are so many other things that you need to know to scale an Amazon FBA business. My mentorship program is actually on offer right now for Black Friday at just £290 per month. It's helped people like Sam scale to £60,000 profit months. It's helped people like Wes make an additional £6,000 alongside his 9 to 5. And it's helped people like Leighton buy their dream car. Inside, you're gonna get a 10-hour video course, one-to-one training directly from me, introduction to some of my suppliers, regular group sessions, exclusive lead giveaways, and so much more. On this program, I'm going to be teaching you sourcing methods that you won't find anywhere else online. And all this for less than the price of a VA each month. So if you're interested in joining, head down below to the video description and click the link at the top where you can book in a call with me to learn more about it. Finally, like and subscribe if you found this video useful, and click up here to watch my video on how you can get ungated to sell products on Amazon.